Chapter 40. Off to the skies. Those plans would have to wait though, as right now the pressing matter was to get those golems in orbit. Alkenstar had been sending packs of 5 golems per trip, and with everything else covered it was time to get working. The party had been fearing for a while a retaliation from the remaining Pact Masters, but things so far had been quiet. That meant that either they had been properly scared and decided to stay out of their way, or they were preparing for a bigger offensive. Both cases made orbital golems fundamental, noted Hassan. A considerable amount of money was poured into the project. As it went through, they encountered a couple of issues. The first one was that Babaganush's people, save for one, were unable to muster the level of arcane magic required to cast contingency portals into the Null Zone, as we ended up dubbing the area between the two planes. Help had to be brought from distant corners of the land, and the gnome was given the task of gathering it. The members of the Tactical Forgiveness Unit, now that the good deeds were no longer profitable, were reorganized into the Business Enhancement Division, and their first mission was to assist Babaganush into getting what they needed, even if it needed some steel glove slapping, or perhaps specifically if it needed some steel glove slapping. The second was setting up the whole issue regarding orbital coordinates and golem trajectories. Hassan wanted to set up the golems on top of the most important cities, namely Opara, Taldor's capital, Agorian, Cheliax's capital, Sothis, Osirian's capital, Almas, Andorran's capital, Kathir, Quadira's capital, Absalom, city-state but perhaps the most important city of all, and of course, Katapesh. He also figured out that putting some on top of Alkenstar, Geb, and Mekatar would help, in case the states directly to the south wanted to get frisky with the STC. So 50 golems spread across 10 cities meant 5 golems per target. More than enough to reduce all of them to nothingness. In his thought, of course, as he didn't exactly know how powerful the strikes would actually be. As per my own interpretation, they were a lot more powerful than what even Hassan thought they'd be. But of course, I kept that to myself. This problem forced the party to start hunting down for mathematicians, natural philosophers, and just about any kind of NPC that could help them with the dense-level calculations needed to get it right. A huge NASA-like operation was set up next to the STC Palace, with the alchemists from Arcane Services working on all manner of homunculi to serve as assistants and abacus handlers. Number-crunching soared when they started casting Owl's intellect en masse, and more when Valinar got a hold of some gnomish smartwater, though those who were given the liquid at first died from cranial explosions due to grotesquely swollen brains. Some more died until they figured out the right doses. We flash forward to the point that the operation started taking shape. There were some minor incidents during that period, the only one of notice being something involving what the party suspected to be spies from someone in Katapesh. Wasn't clear whether it was the Pact Masters or someone else from the Merchant Court. The party did still have the prince in seclusion, after all, and the guy had some powerful allies. Then again, Rakim assumed they were probably fighting over the scraps left by the former Grand Vizier, rather than worried about getting him free. The 50 iron golems had been delivered, though the party did have to send a huge number of hired workforce from Alkenstar to hurry up the deliveries after the spy situation, and they had been set up with the null charges and contingency spells. A landing platform, more for style than for anything practical, had been erected near the palace on top of one of the old dirt piles left from the mine digging, on top of which the golems had been set up. All manner of working crews, magical analysts, structural inspectors, and what have you skittered around them, magically enhanced voices echoing through the place just to give it the right feel. Standing on a balcony, Hassan rose a glass of wine to the rest of the party, except Vorgok, who had been sent to keep an eye on the wellspring. "Gentlemen, I think words are in excess here, so let us simply bask in the glory of what is to come." After they toasted and drank, he turned around. "Mr. Babaganush, bring them up." One by one, arcane crews, assisted by the wellspring and reasonably scared into efficiency by Vorgok's presence, began teleporting away with the golems, setting them up in orbit. One of them had a mishap, and almost sent one of the golems intended to menace Opera crashing down. But the barbarian prevented it by punching it back into place and using an action point to conveniently ignore the wonky physics involved.